Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Great, thanks. Am I the only one sharing my camera? I'll turn it off. No one else is going video.
Too early.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. I see this is a shy group.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good
Can
morning.
you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Bernie. It looks like everybody is on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bernie.
Perfect. There we go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Janice on?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you all for taking the time this Sunday to join us. Today, wanted to first off, I need to thank Janice for pointing out that maybe we should have Wade join us in this meeting. I didn't understand until after I read the documents that Wade had recommended to us, which was the document on procedural justice, and I think that they're very eye-opening for me, which I think that it would be good if we have a bit of a discussion about. But I'd ask Wade if he would talk a little bit about that for us as we start into today's meeting, looking at all of the things that we've gone through. And I'd like to thank both Captain Caselli and Chief Caselli and Captain Spencer. Thank you for joining us. As I think that we'll proceed, is I wanted to allow Wade to introduce himself and some of the things that his committee may do that reflect on the issues that we are facing within this subcommittee. And then also, I have a request to further look at some of the policy that I've been looking at specifically, but based off of some of the stuff that Wade has provided us with in terms of procedural justice. And then we have some follow-up to conversations that we've been having either in our meetings or with emails that we've sent back and forth. And I know specifically that Richard has brought up. So with that in mind, Janice, unless you have something else that you'd like to share or add to this at this time.
No, I'm good.
And once again, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and thoughtfulness in having Wade join us.
Yeah, thank you everybody for letting me join. And I spoke to Bernie and Janice after your last meeting with the with the bigger group, the larger group, and I had just some concerns because I thought that the Policy and Procedures Committee, subcommittee, doing a great job, but I think it might be getting a little bit too much into the weeds, and that's going to probably draw things out a lot. I mean, if you look at lawmakers in general, when they try to change laws and make laws, it takes months, if not years, and we don't have that kind of time. So I was thinking more of addressing things at a higher level. For example, I wrote myself some notes here, so I won't miss anything. Like I said, there's not a lot of time left to go over everything deep into the details. So we should look at the issues at hand, look at some of the things that when we had the public session, some of the things that some of our members in our committee had brought up about, issues with law enforcement, police contacts. You think about like the Kenneth Chamberlain situation, public venues. Some folks talk about respect with the police department, and they talk about, transparency and accountability. So, we have to look at things at a higher level. With use of force, I believe in instead of going through each line of the use of force policy, we should look at the high level. I'm thinking like time, distance, if you have a situation, make the deadly physical force the last resort, exhaust every option prior to the use of deadly physical force if possible, every, safe, reliable, option that you could think of. We had a situation in White Plains years ago when I was working in narcotics. We were going after a young man for selling drugs. When we got to his apartment, we had a confrontation at the door. He got out, he ran away from us, ran to his bedroom, pulled out a shotgun, and started shooting at us. We were very justified in firing back, but his parents were in the apartment, his brother's children were in the apartment. So we we had a standoff pretty much. And during that time, we talked to him respectfully. Several of the members, in the police department went to high school with him, so they knew him personally. And we were able to talk him down, talk him into letting his family leave the apartment. So we were there for a long time. There was no rush. There was no urgency. There was no panic. We got to get him now. We had dialogue. We got the parents out. We continued talking with this individual. It was, a few hours into it. Finally, he was at one time saying, I'm only leaving here in a body bag and I'm taking some of you guys with me. So we went from that to him throwing down his weapon and surrendering. And, and he lived to, he went to trial. He spent some time in prison. But now he and I could talk, and we could talk about an incident. It's like, it's, a lesson learned. So it's, Bernie mentioned, some of the things that are out there. And I know you guys are familiar with Project Able and Epic. I believe that was going around. And those are two things that we should consider as well, as far as policies and procedures. Instead of going line by line, we should try to, make sure that the policies and procedures has things like Epic, has things like procedural justice, has things like Able. Active bystander and law enforcement law, as far as, if a police officer sees someone doing something wrong, he has to say something, and he has to be protected if he says something, especially if it's against a superior. People are afraid of insubordination, police officers. So, but if you see your boss making a wrong decision, when I was a boss and I made a decision, a police officer came to me, hey boss, Captain Spencer can remember this. There was a burglary, a car break-in. And I was like, well, grab that and do it here. And Spencer's, boss, why don't we just bring this inside and control environment? I said, oh, good idea. He wasn't, challenging me. He just said what, made sense. So we have to encourage police officers. If your boss is making a decision and you don't think it's just or right, or you think it's dangerous, or you think it might put somebody in harm's way, you should be able to, hey boss, can I just say something? And you should be heard. Law enforcement is a paramilitary type organization, and you follow the chain of command, which you need. But sometimes a police officer may see something the boss may not see. The boss is looking at a lot of things. Police officer may see one little thing that, hey, he didn't notice this. So we should encourage, maybe able training that's free, that they can come train the trainer from Georgetown law school. They'll, that's a lot of agencies are using that now, the active bystander law. So that's basically, in my subcommittees, we're looking at things at a higher level. What can we do to improve the relationship between the community and police, to build trust, for the police to show accountability, to justify their actions, and that's basically what the procedural justice is. There's I guess 4 pillars of procedural justice: fairness, voice, transparency, and impartiality. So like I said, I just want to make sure we get this done right. I don't want to, spend too much time going line by line and not getting things done. I was on a call the other day with the county-wide police reform committee and different agencies. And there are several municipalities that haven't even started yet, because I guess either they don't get any money from the state, so they don't care, or they just feel it's not that serious. So we're ahead of the curve as far as area Westchester County based police agencies. But I want to make sure we don't miss anything, because at the end of the day, when this is over, we got to live with what our recommendations are. If the city council decides to go with them or not, we got to make sure we at least put something on the table for them to consider. And I don't want to go too deep into the woods and we miss we don't get these things done. We all volunteer to do this on our own time, so it's not like we got 40 hours a week to work on this. We only have, a few hours a day, after everything else that's going on in our busy lives. So I just want to make sure that, we think of things at a high level. We think about the things we heard during the public hearings. We think about what we heard from one of our own members. Had two incidents. One was life changing when, sort of, destroyed her career of possibly being a police officer, and just some of some of the recommendations we heard from the public. And we got to make sure that we address the high level issues, instead of going line by line, word by word into the policies and procedures. Any questions?
I'd like, thank you, Will. Before I kind of respond, can I just read off, what you had sent me in terms of the documents were very compelling for me in terms of what we are going through in this committee, and also I think what we're trying to do in total. So if the group would allow me just to read through some of the things, or bullet points that I got from the documents about procedural justice, I think that they line up a lot with our intent within this committee. So one of the things is about transparency, as you said, but it states here that individuals' perception of procedural just encounters are based on four central features of their interaction with legal authority. One is whether they are treated with dignity and respect. And Chief knows that as we've gone around to speak to various entities within even the Winbrook area, that I've made that as a point to him that that our community respect is a very big thing. And I know that it resides within on the side of the police officer, but it also resides on the side of the civilian. Two, where they were given, whether they are given a voice. All right. So in our community, being able to be heard, which is why Black Lives Matter is out there marching in the street, is because they want to. Our community wants to be heard about the issues that affect us, especially with policing. Three, the decision maker was neutral and transparent in dealing with them. So whoever they're talking to within, who's representing the police department or some law enforcement department, they would like to feel as though that they are not being placed in any situ of prejudice or anything of that nature. So being neutral and transparent, being able to understand exactly what is going to happen, what is happening, and what will happen with any issues that we have. And then three, that the decision maker conveys trustworthiness. And that's a big component of, I think what we're all trying to lead to is to ensure that there's a sense of trustworthiness within our community with the services that are provided to us, i.e. policing. Um, there's also a point here that I got from that was about the voice. The voice of individuals are given a chance to express their concern and participation in decision-making process by telling their side of the story. Now, for me, this points directly to one of the policies that we've dealt with, which is personnel complaint. And I'll speak a little bit more about that as we can as we go forward. But another point here is that respect. All individuals are treated with dignity and respect, and in neutrality. Decisions are unbiased and guided by consent and transparent reasoning. And then once again, that trustworthiness is tremendously important, making that decision makers convey trustworthy motives and concern about the well-being of those impacted by their decision. And then finally, there are four items that I read through that seem to be a motto or goals that come from procedural justice. And that is one that the police are supposed to help sustain my liberty, help sustain my happiness in my environment, and the quality of life that I lead. And I think that those are really lofty goals that we're all trying to achieve, especially within the process that we're going through. So with that said, I just wanted to read those things off. If any of you haven't had the chance to read through the documents from Wade in terms of procedural justice, I really, really recommend. I think that they line up a lot with everything that we've been going through within this committee to identify solutions that are more favorable to the resolution of safety for the civilian. So I'd like to, at this point, ask anyone to ask or do they have any comments or questions about any of those or anything that Wade has to say. Janice, anything?
No, I did not get a chance to read it. I was very busy this weekend, but I'm looking at it now as we speak. And I appreciate so much what Wade is saying. You know, he comes with so much knowledge and so much information. So I'm looking at it now as we speak. And I just want to say thank you, Wade, for coming on and sharing, all your knowledge with us. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking at it
No
now,
problem.
though.
Okay. So the other thing that I'd like to move on to is, so as we talk about policies that as we've gotten to, I think that we've done a lot of work, and I think that there's a lot of value in the work we've done, Wade. And I think that along with uh, the specific items that we have touched on and things that we'd like to address, there's also the overall look at policies in general that we feel that there are things that could benefit from improvement on. And I think that that aside each other, whether it's a general overall view matching some of the approaches that you speak of in terms of how we have looked at policy versus looking at the individual comments and laws or and sections of a policy. I think that there's value for us to be able to document to make sure that that both of those things are there. There is definitely, and we can go through some of that a little bit further as we go along. One of the policies that I have been looking at and actually mentioned at our presentation was, as I said, the policy on personnel complaint. And in looking at that policy, it caused me to reflect on, as you have worked in Winbrook, Wade, I've been at Winbrook for over 10 years working with the residents in terms of security and safety. And one of the things that I often get back in here is that I have a complaint about something that the police has done. And I may want to, as a resident, turn to an officer and say, what am I supposed to do if I have a complaint? Or if I want to lodge a complaint about an officer that I'm involved with? And how does that get across? And I understand that there is a procedure that takes place now that is accounted for that allows for an individual or individuals to state their complaint to the department so that that can be processed through. And as we've looked at it, the process is that I make it a document that comes off of the website that I'm able to print out and fill out. And I may have to take that in to speak to a desk sergeant to hand that in to ensure that that person has documented the receipt of my complaint. And Chief and Spencer's correct me if my understanding of this procedure is not correct. Um, at that time, the desk sergeant may make a determination if that complaint has some warrant enough to pass it along. And then at that point, it may get passed along to the chief, and the chief may make a decision that this complaint has enough merit to it that that you decide to then push that to the Office of Professional Standards, your group that will look and investigate further as to what those issues may be. And at some point, you may even make a judgment that that the issue that came from the complaint is of uh, such issue that it needs to be then passed along to possibly the DA's department. So for further evaluation and investigation. And then finally, that issue may then get passed back to you for after some time for a decision and overall documentation of the completion of of what that policy, or what that complaint has gone through, or how it has been reflected on, and then some accountability to the entity that has placed that complaint. And that might be, as it says in the policy, that is a letter that may be sent by U.S. mail to the individual. And just covering that, is that the case of how it generally flows, Chief?
There are more nuances than that. I know Captain Spencer, I can't remember which meeting had spoken. I think it was the one where we had our professional standards people on Wednesday, and the ways that they receive complaints. The policy procedure may have that. You got to fill out the complaint form and then it has to go in. But we've taken them over the phone. We have taken third party. We've taken, people have mailed in complaints. So whereas the procedure probably could use some upgrading in terms of the various ways to make the complaint. What you explained is generally true, but there's more ways. We're not stuck to, if the person doesn't follow our procedure, that we will not take the complaint. We're gonna, if there's a complaint, we'd rather investigate it and find out what's going on, and then make the corrections, deal with the officer, or pass it along if it's of a more serious nature that we'd have to get the county or somebody else involved. But so the idea of filling out the thing and handing it into a desk sergeant is not exactly, you can do that. I mean, more often people come into that night window more and they want to make a complaint, as we spoke about on Wednesday, and that desk officer has the potential ability to deal with that complaint then and there. And if it's of a minor nature, let's say the cop was rude to me on a traffic stop. Again, the body cam has turned out to be invaluable. We can show that person the body cam and make that determination. If the person's satisfied, the boss just has to write me an email that he did it. If they're not and they want a complaint form, they can fill it out. If the sergeant takes it, he would put it in an envelope, seal it, and send it to professional standards. That's but as he said, it's not. We'll take a complaint however we receive it for the most part.
Yeah, Bernie, if I could just jump in. On Wednesday, we had the Transparency Accountability Subcommittee had a meeting with the chief, captain, and the professional standards detective and sergeant. And we are working on, improving that process. But, the things you mentioned about how the complaints come in, we're working on more opportunities for folks to file a complaint, following up a complaint, being advised on the outcome, et cetera. So that subcommittee is working on that part of this, this issue.
But thank you. And I understand that there are nuances to the process as to how that might happen. I know that, and just let me tell you that this is from the point of view of procedural justice. This is one of the areas where the more gray it is, or the more it leads to more, doesn't help in terms of the issue of distrust. It's as though I'm not familiar with what happens. And so as I've spoken to literally everyone, most of the subcommittee chairs, as to this being one of the things that I see within the policies and procedures, that we may have an opportunity to enhance the process that will be beneficial on both sides, for the department and also for the civilian, in terms of feeling that that there's a process and procedure that is open and identifiable for them, and each time that they would be able to go through that. And that procedure is, as I've had these conversations, literally with everybody, with Patrick in that committee, Wade, I've had this conversation with you. I've even had the conversation with you, Chief, and also uh, uh, Captain Spencer. And I've asked some of the people from the county's process if they have been talking about this in general, and it would be an enhancement to the process as to how complaints can be made. We have new technology now that can be put in place in order to allow for people to, in various ways, document the fact that they've made a complaint, and then also be able to account for the process that that complaint is going through, which will also help in the issue of transparency. And once again, points right back to procedural justice way. Being able to, for example, allow someone to go online or use their cell phone, or also speak to an officer to take that complaint, so that it is registered in some way that I have a documented event that tells me that that has happened. Just as, for example, if I go to Verizon and I have a problem with my phone, if they have to do any type of research, I may get a docket number that allows me to tag that to my issue, and that issue as it gets resolved or goes through some process, I may be able to call back or check in to see the status of that. That also helps in terms of procedural uh, um, um, process, and helping the individual understand that, yeah, I did make this, and I understand that it is being attended to. There's some record of it that they may be able to turn back to. And then at the end of the day, there's also possibly an electronic report that they can refer to, um, which would definitely be helpful. It helps, it would help actually the community in various ways for those who are bilingual and may not be able to understand the entire process that they have to go to. They may have spoken to someone up front who may have helped them make that complaint and get past the issue of language. But in terms of where it exists and how it exists, and what stage it's at, they may not have that ability to get that at this time, for what I see. And this would be able to enhance that process that you have already in place, and provide some accountability and transparency on the outside for civilians. I know that when I spoke to Isabel Villar, who said that at this time she knows that she's able to turn to you, Chief, and for any other issues that come up with those who use her services, that she's always gotten value back in terms of seeing that when she reached out to you, she got back your commitment and time to help resolve any of the issues that come up with her community. And she did say she did feel that it would be definitely an enhancement to process and accountability and transparency to have a system in place that could account for multiple entries and accountability and tracking of a complaint by a civilian. So I just think that for that particular policy, being able to have an enhanced procedure as we come out of this, to offer up to the community that something positive came out that we worked on together to make that happen, would definitely be a win-win for us. Does anyone have any questions about that? Because what I'd like to do is to continue to work on how we might be able to have some very high level notes as to uh, what we could do in order to make that enhancement happen, and look at some of the other places, and possibly even some very high level applications that are out there now that may fit your particular process, just as a recommendation, understanding that whatever is going to be done is done by the department, or and at the approval and request of the Common Council. and the mayor's office. But if we had something like this as we come out of this, I think that it would point to some significant opportunity that we could say to the community that there was something that was applied to that would directly affect their um, evaluation of service and meet the needs of procedural justice as it's lined out here. Yes.
Bernie,
Yes.
I just want to. I've been thinking about this since we had the conversation a few days ago, and in my mind, it looks to me like when you use like FedEx or UPS, you get a tracking number when you submit it, and then as it goes through the process, your tracking number actually shows you what step your complaint is in. For example, submitted would be one, and then the chief's review might be one, officer professional standards investigation. So wherever it is in the process, your tracking number could be used to show you exactly where it is. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, something similar to that. Yes, I think
Okay.
it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to speak directly as to what the determinations are and who's working on it or what department, but just in general to give some reflection back as to its proceeding that your complaint is going through this uh, process in a fashion that's accountable and open
Yeah.
to recognize. That's it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I like that. And I think that at each step, wherever it is, if the chief wants to give a note to or just notate to the complaint, the person who made the complaint, expect to hear from so and so in a week, or there could be some kind of communication, added metadata to that. That it sounds like a good idea.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, Wade.
Yes, I think about where I work now. We have a system. If you submit a complaint against an employee or any kind of security incident complaint, once you, it's a internet-based report form that you fill out. Once you submit, you get like a 10-digit code, and you can always go back to that. You could, and after you hit submit, you get a 10-digit code and asks you to choose a password. So you could always go back into the system, put that code in and the password, and get the status of the complaint. If you submitted an anonymous complaint, you don't want your name heard. That 10-digit code is you. So if you want to ask a question or if something else happens, you want to go back in the system. Listen, by the way, I just saw that officer do that again, and you could submit that complaint, that information under the same complaint number, without identifying yourself. That it's probably going to cost more money because I don't know if they have systems now that can do that. But it's a great system. You get a 10-digit code. You choose your password. And you can always go back for to check the status. But that, you have to use your phone or your computer.
Right.
It's not something you do on via paperwork.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's definitely it. That meets it. I think that everyone that I've spoken to about this feels that yes, it is something that would be beneficial. It is not something that's a detractor against the department. It's not something that I think that anyone that I've spoken to, whether it be, and I have an opportunity to speak to on a weekly basis, 20 to 30 stakeholders in the community, those who are responsible for providing services and resource in terms of the hospital, the Ministers' Council. When I spoke to Reverend Trollinger, he had me on the phone for an hour talking to me about situations that he has gone through in which he felt that this would definitely be of benefit. I could say that in terms of procedural justice, I had something happen in my community, and I live in Valhalla, that just blew me away in terms of receiving service from the police department. That's something I had never expected before. I had a relative who, if you just bear with me for a second, I had a relative who we had staying with us, who we grew into art with, and had to see that they left. As they left, they kept giving threats to us that they were going to do this and that to us. So my wife and I decided to say, we're going to go to the police department to let them know, our local police department, to let them know in Valhalla that we have this issue. And just for the sake that if something happened, at least they would know that we made the report ahead of time. When we got there, we spoke to the desk sergeant, and he asked us to come into his office and set us down at a desk and asked us what was the situation. And he wrote down the situation. In addition, he asked us for the number of the person that was making this claim against us. At that time, he literally got on the phone and called that person and made a statement to the person to say that, and this was a relative, that you will not look to cause a problem or any situation with any member of my community, because if you do, I'll bring the full weight of the law down against you. I mean, it was just like my wife and I, our mouths dropped open and said, "What? This is what community policing is." We felt that we were being hurt. Everything that way that you sent me in that procedural justice, it hit all of those marks. And it was like, wow, that's what I went through. So when I read what you sent, I said, now I understand. Now I understand why this is important. And so for me, it gained life, and it had a purpose. So I could look at the complaint policy and look at a procedure to go along with that and say, I understand the importance of this, and I understand the importance of this in the community that I provide services to. And I think that it just makes a whole lot of sense to at a high level, as you said, Spencer, look at this in that same way. And Wade, just as it happens at your company, it's exactly what I'm talking about. There, it's just like a no-brainer in a way. Marie, any thoughts?
I'm here. I'm listening. My main thought is what Wade said in the beginning is that we really that we shouldn't get bogged down in all these little details like, wording of things, and that we need to see the big picture. I hear all the stuff that you guys are saying, and I agree with all of it. It's how it all works together. I mean, we're on the Policies and Procedures Committee. I don't know the name of your committee offhand, Wade, but they all like overlap. And I guess not my fear, but my worry is that it's going to be hard for us to stick to our particular subject or issues as it may be for other subcommittees. I don't know. I just toss that out there. I mean, we're talking about transparency and et cetera, but there is a whole subcommittee for transparency. So I'm just a little, I'm not confused. I'm worried that we're not sticking to what we're supposed to be sticking to. So I just toss that out there. And, when we do make our final report, I mean, is it gonna, what it's going to look like? Is it gonna be specific to the specific policies and procedures of the police department? Or is it gonna be more of an overview that's going to encompass all the other issues?
Does anyone else have anything on? Because I think, Marie, that it can be both. I don't think we're limited to either or. I think that we can do both of those. I can very clearly in my mind and in my mind's eye see exactly how that gets done. And I don't think that it's a big leap to make that happen.
I think that if, and this is just the way I see things panning out is that, me and Captain Spencer have been on all these subcommittees at various times, and they're absolutely, Marie, you're right, there's overlap. I think that if you're making your recommendations and there's overlap, I think there's going to be a final document of recommendations, and that just means if 3 of the committees recommend an upgrade to the personnel complaint, whether it's your policies, procedures, or transparency, then it just becomes one recommendation. I think that's all valid. I just think that's kind of the way I see it panning out, just from knowing that a lot of people are asking a lot of similar questions or looking for information on different subcommittees that overlap. So kind of that's the way I see it happening. You guys, I think, are tasked with maybe more present policies and procedures. And the overall goal is to either make those better or to enact policies and procedures that the committee thinks would enhance the police department.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, I see this as, at the end of the day, the chairs of the committees, once we hammer down and settle on our recommendations, we meet with Janice, who's the chair of the overall, Janice, is it two chairs or just one chair?
One chair.
One chair, you're the chair. So we sit down with you and like the chief said, we go over all the recommendations and we don't have one recommendation 3 times. We just have that one recommendation one time. So I think that'd be the best way to do it,
I think that's the way we're going to go. We're going to go through all the recommendations that each subcommittee has, and then we're going to sit down, and if one recommendation comes up 3-4 times, which it very well may, we're going to put it down once.
Sounds good.
So Richard,
I would just note that if three recommendations came up by 3 different committees, I would think that would be even stronger. And I wouldn't just put it down once. I would put it down once, but I would note that this was recommended by transparency and also community and also policy. So it would carry a little bit more weight.
I agree. Thank you.
and then Marie, I think that in terms of the work that we do, that the detail that we have accompany our recommendation, and that is there as documentation to that could be used to evaluate either further those overall recommendations. So I don't see it as being a problem in terms of what we've done so far and what we may be doing going forward. I don't think there's any complication, at least in my mind, as to the validity of the stuff that we've done and how that gets added in. Richard, do you have anything to add to that point?
Well, I would just say that the mandate of the committee is to review the policies and procedures of the White Plains Police Department and to see what recommendations we may have for amending those in order to make them more accurate and better reflect the needs of the community to avoid, to train police officers to avoid regrettable incidents. And so I just don't see any way that we can achieve that without making specific recommendations for amending these policies. That's, if we are the Policies and Procedures Committee and we look at the policies and we see that the policies should be amended in certain respects, although we would like our recommendations to be consonant with the goals of transparency, et cetera, that Wade has talked about, we really can't avoid making recommendations for changing certain policies. So, for example, with respect to the personnel complaint, we understand that Chief Castelli is permitting people to submit complaints by other means, but it would be our responsibility to recommend changes to the written policy so that it doesn't depend on the good graces of the individuals who happen to be running the police department at this time and would apply to whoever is in charge in the future. Because these would be the policies and procedures that we would be recommending.
I agree, and that's one thing we speak about on multiple committees is, you have to think about 10, 15, 20 years from now, who's going to be sitting in the chief's chair, who's going to be sitting in the captain's chair, who's going to be the PBA president. So I agree that we have to, for the policy and procedures committee, I'm not saying don't go over each policy and procedure, but maybe we, when we think about rewriting the policies and procedure or amending them, just think of the high level big picture. We're trying to address the complaint about how to file a police complaint against a police officer, how to make that process more user friendly. So, do you need to go through each line, or could we just, put one bullet in there or take one bullet out? I don't know. I mean, you guys, this is your committee, your subcommittee, but I was in the last call and it just seemed like there was so much to go through. I said, we're never going to get this, guys, never going to get this done by
That's
April
true.
1st. So.
But I do agree that I don't know if it needs to be an either or type of situation. There may be, like I said, the complaint, the personnel complaint procedure could use updating. And that could be as specific as the recommendations are. And then there's overall, that's why we separate policy and procedure. The policy is a bigger picture type of thing, and many of the procedures offer some more specific. So yeah, I see it as a little bit of both. I mean, as opposed to saying you can't get bogged down in certain things. I do think that there is benefit to looking at some of the specifics, but just personnel complaint being one good example of how we can update that to better reflect how people can make them, how we can receive them, and then the process that goes through final disposition. There are other things that are not the recommendations may be a lot broader. So that's just my 2 cents.
I still think that from my vantage point as to what I can see, I think we're still on course. I don't think that there's a drastically. I understand where Wade is coming from, but as the chief has said, it's a basket of both. There are specific recommendations that we've made, and there are general recommendations that we may make, and that we can have both of those. They exist within what we've done. So, in effect, I think that from what I hear, and Marie, is that you feel that we may be changing or trying to change everything that we've done in the past, and I don't see that.
No, we're not. I don't see us changing anything. I just, Wade's right. I think with last meeting, we really got hung up on some, language, and I don't remember offhand exactly what it was, but just my feeling is if we're ever going to come up with a report, we have to look a little bit more at the big picture. And, and some of the recommendations are going to be broad and some will be more specific depending upon, what they are.
So I think we're still on course. Merlene, are you on with us?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any comment to anything that we've gone over so far?
I agree with both Wade and also the article that Janice said. I think we had focused a lot on the smaller things, but that helped to see what was missing in the bigger picture. So for me personally, it'll change the way I look at it, because there are certain things, at least that I haven't seen in the policies and procedures that we've gone over, that I would like to address with the committee to see how we can address it and what those steps would look like.
So would you say that there are things that you have seen in the policies that are specific, or there are things in general that you feel you'd like to comment on about a policy that you want to go over?
Well, for example, something that we've spoken about is there's no clear consequence to anything. Like a lot of the policies say that if you don't follow this, something will happen, but we don't know what that will happen is. And I would like to see something in black and white. It doesn't have to be a specific, if you do A, you get B, but I would like to see something in black and white that says that there are consequences. And that something will happen. I think a lot of the cases that we've seen, there's never any real consequences to the police officer or anything. So I would like to see something in black and white that says that there are consequences, and whatever that looks like, we'll figure it out. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I haven't seen anything in black and white that says that there are consequences.
Could I just ask something? Yeah, Marlene, you mean something like, violation of this policies or these policies or procedures can, can be lead up to, reprimand, suspension, or
Exactly.
termination?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief or Spencer, can you comment on any of that?
I know some of the disciplinary stuff is in our contract. And again, I I don't know how to explain it other than, if something is violated, there is discipline. Whether it is a counseling, letter of admonishment, letter of reprimand, or some type of suspension, it's there. Other departments do have matrices that talk about that. We had looked at that a while ago. I guess, I don't know, I wasn't involved in it, but I know they looked at it and deemed it wasn't something that was outright, they thought necessary.
What's a matrix, Chief?
I'm sorry, Richard. So it would say they actually delineate certain, let's say, violation 1, level 1 would be 3 to 5 days, aggravating factors 5 to 8 days, multiple second infraction, and 3 or more infractions would delineate a range of discipline that could mete it out. So depending, and then it would go down the seriousness, first time, aggravating factors, second time, 3 or plus more times. So that way an officer would understand, or there'd just be an understanding of what, if you did this particular thing, this is what you could be looking at. Again, I think we do that where, we're not that big a department where the discipline that's meted out is not pretty much known by the department. So that's kind of it. But the matrix, you understand what I mean by the matrix? It's just a kind of a guideline for in the infraction, the severity of it, the repetitiveness of it, and then what potential discipline somebody could expect to see.
Can I just say something? I think that might be something maybe the department could look at again. I mean, just for an internal thing for police officers themselves, like 10 years from now, if you're not the chief and a new chief is sitting there and somebody he knows, a good friend of his gets in trouble, this is his 3rd offense. But hey, the chief's buddy, so we're not gonna hurt this guy too much. But if it's part of the policy procedure, like 3rd offense, this is the punishment. Sorry, it has to be done. So in that aspect, it might be a good idea to make it less subjective and more, matrix based.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. It's something to look at. It may have to be contractual. I don't think that, I don't know what, the PBA's pro or cons would be about that. But I have a feeling that a lot of the way discipline is meted out is contractual.
Do we have a copy of the collective bargaining agreement that sets forth a process for complaints against police officers?
Not complaints, but more the hearing and the discipline of the officers. The bargaining agreement doesn't contain the process for making complaints, but it deals more with the actual the rights of the officer when they are the subject of of potential discipline.
Is that public information?
I don't know. Good question. I can find out, and if I think it's, it's a document that's kept by the city and the PBA. So
Outside of
can
your
ask-
department?
I'm sorry.
That's outside of your department?
It
Those
affects me, but it's signed by the city and the PBA. So it's not. I don't know if it's my document to give out, but I'll certainly ask both parties if they have any problem with it. I don't know. Or I mean, Richard, maybe you would know this better than me, or anybody else who is who's in the law field here. Is a collective bargaining agreement a public document, or is it
Collective
something?
bargaining agreements with public authorities are public documents.
Okay. So, I mean, if that's the case,
Generally,
I mean, if you
unless
wanted
there's some
to,
law that prohibits their distribution to third parties,
yeah,
which I'm unaware.
yeah, I don't know. I can find out. I mean, I could certainly find out if you wanted to review that.
Bernie,
Yes,
it's Karen. May I make a suggestion?
sure.
So, I've been able to listen in to all of these subcommittees meetings for the past couple of months. And I would be willing to take a stab at kind of trying to utilizing Wade's suggestion of structuring the recommendations based on bigger picture or broader points, and then perhaps utilizing those to make some specific recommendations along the lines of what the committee has talked about and put forward to date. And I could take a stab at trying to put something like that together, and then that perhaps could be something that the subcommittee could then work off of. Sometimes it's easier to have a document to work off of and edit and discuss to keep the process moving forward. And if that's something that the subcommittee would like me to do, I could certainly take a stab at doing that.
Anybody want to comment on
Look,
that?
my feeling is if Karen is willing to do that, then, by all means, have at it.
I agree. Thanks, Karen.
She just signed up for something.
I know. I think Janet's jumping up and down right now, so she can't say anything.
Patrick, we haven't had an opportunity to hear from you. Is there anything that, and Karen, I'm not pushing you off. I just wanted to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard.
Of course, no
Yeah,
worries.
I would say there would be no harm in having that work done by you. And definitely as a committee, we could look back to see if there's anything that we felt was missing or should be added. We can go through making that recommendation from what I see. But I do want to just reach out to ask Patrick, is there anything that you'd like to make comment on that we have covered so far?
Just one thing, our office also has, entertains personnel complaints. Sometimes individuals aren't comfortable going to the agency that allegedly has violated their rights or they've had a bad encounter with. I'm not necessarily saying our office is always the best agency to then bring that to based on sometimes the interactions that we have with the police department. But we do entertain personnel complaints because sometimes they are either brought to the police and they feel nothing's happening on them, or they just don't feel comfortable bringing them to the police. And so they are accessible through our website. They can be filled out either in person, anonymously, or electronically, and then submitted. And then they're given to our PI bureau, who can then investigate them as well. I don't know how that really reflects as to a recommendation as towards the police policy and procedure, but I just wanted to put it out there in case that goes to a different subcommittee so that the public is aware that there is another format to file a complaint where you don't have to necessarily go to the agency that you're complaining about. And then you might feel that you're not going to get a fair shake because they're going to be reviewing themselves.
Understood. Understood. That makes a lot of sense. And thank you for that note. One of the things that uh, uh, in looking at the procedures for complaint, oftentimes we think that there's just a complaint about an officer. But I know that working in this field, there are many complaints, not just about an officer, but about an activity that may be consistent amongst a number of people, or an activity that has taken place by the service provider, well, in this case, the police department. And this would also allow for that to be accounted for, or for those types of issues to be accounted for. So definitely, I know in speaking to Rose Eller, that the school system has gone through uh, in effect, an audit or a survey to identify the students' care and concern for, I think, many different avenues of supervision. And one of those avenues is the school-based police officers that are there. And there is from my understanding, there's a good communication line between the school and the police department. But as we say, as we go forward, we want to make sure that that gets maintained. Just as Wade said, 4 or 5 years down the road, we want to make sure that the ideas and interests that we come up with today are maintained or improved upon as we go forward, by people who may administer the department in the future. So definitely understand your point. I know that I spoke to one of the issues that has come up in the housing authority, for example, is uh, police departments of some type that may knock on the door or be problematic for a resident, and they think that it's the White Plains Police Department, but it's not. It could be ICE, it could be the DEA, it could be the county police, it could be uh, the uh, the the DA's department. Or all of these have officers that may knock on the door or in some way interact with the civilian in their daily life. And if anything that took place that may have been considered to be inappropriate from an individual from one of these departments, White Plains Police Department is going to receive the the call for it, and they're also going to be blamed for it. So being able to have this method of accountability, and I'm quite sure now that there are things that come to the police department that might not have been exactly the police department's issue or have been caused by the police department, but you're going to get the work behind it in investigating it, and also in terms of making sure that it was resolved in some way, at least for the civilian. So definitely, Patrick, I see exactly where you're coming from, and understand that your department does that also.
Can I just ask one question on Patrick? You mentioned you guys will accept complaints against police officers and look into them. Do you guys actually investigate those complaints, or you just follow up with the police agency to make sure they were addressed?
No, our office will actually investigate them. They'll reach out to if the person was charged or wasn't charged, depending. So they might be represented by counsel. So if they were charged, then we'll reach out to the defense attorney to see if they'll bring their person in and proffer as to the allegation of either excessive force or whatever their allegation is. And if it's not charged, then we'll reach out directly to the civilian to find out what it is. And one of our assistants or one of our own investigators from our own department will meet with them.
Okay, which department? I'm sorry, which department are you with again?
The district attorney's office.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right.
Patrick, that's your Office of Public Integrity, correct?
That is correct, Cap.
So Karen, back to your offer. Does Richard, Marie, Janice, is there and Merlene, is there any comment about Janice's offer to assist us in?
That was Karen's offer.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Karen,
Get it straight.
please excuse me. Janice,
Yes.
any thoughts about Karen's offer?
No, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good idea.
Good. And once again, Merlene, you think it's a good idea, and Richard, is it a good idea on your part too?
I think it's a good.
Well, go ahead.
I said I think it's a good idea.
Okay, Richard.
Well, just understanding that it has to supplement what we're doing with respect to specific policies and procedures. I have no objection.
Yeah, I think it has to come back to us, and we have to validate the body of work anyway. Am I not correct, Karen?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it would be an aid to us to have that happen.
Right.
And we could take a look and adjust it or amend it as we feel we need to as a committee.
I think the formatting would definitely help. It
Okay.
would give us a starting point at the very least.
All right. Is there anything else that Janice, that you feel we should cover as part of this meeting? Does anyone else have? Oh, Richard, we didn't actually get to cover your topic, and we could cover that now. I think that I think you had sent it out to everyone, so we had an opportunity to read through what Richard had sent to us regarding. Richard, can you just take some time to reacquaint us with that? Richard still with us?
Uh,
Richard seems to have lost audio.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, maybe he's back. Maybe he's back. Richard, if you can't speak, can you hear? And if you can hear, do you want to call in? Or maybe you could text, send us a chat to let us know your status. I'll send him a
Hello?
chat. Are you there, Richard?
Yeah, I'm fading in and out here for some reason.
Okay, did you hear what I'd said? I'd asked you at this time, did you want to take the time to go through the particular issue that you had documented for us, you sent out?
Well, very briefly, I will just say that there is a standard to which I have referred in submissions to the subcommittee for when police officers or the city
Richard, we're losing you. I don't know if anyone else is picking him up. I'm not.
No. Well, I think Richard was just, I'm looking at what he sent, and it was just more about use of force and, further clarification of what we've been talking about the last couple of times.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Now we can.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so generally what I'm going to say is that there is a standard for which an individual who sues a police officer or the city for use of force alleged to have been excessive must meet in order to hold the police officer or the city liable. And there is a defense of justification for certain acts engaged in by a police officer that can be raised if the officer is charged by the district attorney or the attorney general of the state of New York. But those standards do not restrict the committee or the police department from enacting policies that are more restrictive on the use of force to that which is really necessary, and regardless of whether the officer could be charged with a crime if under certain circumstances that are more lenient, shall we say. So what this committee or subcommittee can recommend can be more restrictive than what a police officer could use to defend himself if he was charged, because it's a matter of what the policy is that we are recommending.
We could talk about that as our recommended policies and or procedures.
So I think, Richard, you sent out the specific language or a reference to each of us.
Yeah.
We should refer to that. And does anyone have any comment to that at this particular time? Yes.
Yeah, I don't think Jimmy and I have that. Do we have that, or is that some of the stuff from the other meeting, or is this new?
I think this is within this week. What I will do is to make sure that Karen gets a copy of that. And then Karen can make sure that it's sent to you for the purpose of record. Okay, Richard? Yes.
I just sent it. I just sent it to Captain Spencer and Chief Castelli.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Karen. Bernie, I just want to try to understand what Richard's saying. Richard, can you help me out? You're saying that so a police officer does something, let's just say horrific. There's a criminal standard, right? That he might get away with. It might not meet the criminal standard, and there's also a civil liability standard that he might not meet the level of of guilt there. But we still might not. The act is so egregious that we still don't want him to be a police officer. There should be something in the policy that we could use on our behalf, and that's in that circumstance. Or did I explain it? Marie,
So
can you help me
let
out?
us suppose. So let us suppose that the policy permits an officer to shoot a fleeing felon on the theory that the police officer believes the felon has committed an act.
Oh, that is one of the areas that I think can be recommended. I mean, I can tell you this, and I don't know, again, some of why it's not specifically in there in reference, but we absolutely talk about in all our training when it comes to use of force and response resistance about New York State does have a fleeing felon rule, but Tennessee versus Garner, which kind of throws that all out the window. We teach that. We teach that every chance we get when we're talking about, especially when it's newer cops, so they have an understanding. Tennessee versus Garner. If you'll excuse me, the layman's terms is that I believe it was a burglar and they were running away and an officer shot him. And the case ruled that just because somebody is running away and have committed a felony does not give you the right to use deadly physical force across the board. And we teach that. So I did look over our response to resistance and our firearms policy. I don't know if it addresses that, but it has been a concept that is no stranger to the White Plains Police Department. It's something that's ingrained in everybody, but certainly we could memorialize it in our procedures and policy.
And that's exactly what I meant about, higher level,
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna if I could just add to that, Chief. I was gonna discuss with the chief and then bring it to the subcommittee. One of the things that we would be able to do is to codify better sanctity of life, and that would be an overarching theme over use of force and other policies, and that might help this subcommittee with a higher view adjustment of our policies procedure or enhancement of our policy procedures. I just have to have some conversations with the chief and meet some things out before I bring it back to the subcommittee.
Yeah, when I spoke with Janice and Bernie, I mentioned de-escalation, et cetera, but I also mentioned, deadly physical force. You should exhaust safely exhaust every other option prior to using deadly physical force. Time and distance. Give yourself distance between yourself and the offender. There's no hurry, there's no rush. Give yourself time, but exhaust every, if you can't say, if someone says, well, did you try this, which is something simple? Oh no, I didn't think about that. Well, you got to exhaust every effort before you use deadly physical force, because you can't call a bullet back. You can't, you can't reverse something. You can't undo something. You can't call a timeout. Let's do it over again. So you got to think about every option before, the use of deadly physical force, because that's,
right.
That's it.
That speaks to the sanctity of life. So, yeah, we're in total agreement with that. Wade, thank you.
That sanctity of life sounds like something we should look into. I like that idea. Is that something that's already in existence, or is that something you think that you might want to bring to the table?
So I've been on a few webinars, one of which this chief assigned me to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and they were speaking to this concept that we already do, but I think that we can codify better. We can put down in our policy
Absolutely
better, so that everyone understands that this is what we're doing, and that's for the community and for the police department. I think it would help us, and it would enhance our policy, and it would be something good, a good enhancement from this subcommittee.
I think that would be great. Yeah, I like that idea.
And let me say that that I think that this is where we were, at least where I had looked at before, and I'm glad that Wade, you brought that up. That I think that once again across all of the policies, as you say, Captain Spencer, that it needs to be reflected in language that is identifiable within that policy. I think that's where Richard is coming from. So we're looking at these policies. We have, out of the 24 policies, we have about 8 or 9 of them that we've looked at. But there's language in some of the policies that reflect on other policies that need to be clarified, or how they connect. And I think that's where you're right, that the language and the spirit of an example is what Richard is talking about, needs to be reflected across many of the policies that exist. Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to add at this time?
And just one thing, that sanctity of life that Captain Spencer just mentioned, that covers the fleeing felon. If you're living by sanctity of life, that's your guide. You're not shooting at that fleeing felon. So go ahead.
Is there something that we can read? Is this somewhere that we can look at this concept?
Yeah, I'll send it to you, Karen. I'll send a link to. There was a report done, I think, by the U.S. Council of Mayors. I'll have to look it up, and then I'll get it to Karen when I find it.
Can you make sure, that we
Very
all get a
good.
chance to see it, Karen?
Yes, I'll send it around as soon as I get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, Bernie, just add that I think that the policy on the use of deadly physical force is one of the most important policies that for any police department responding to the incidents involving, multiple deaths of Black people across the country or people of color. And so it deserves some attention, not because we think that the police department of the city of White Plains is going around killing people on a routine basis. Of course, we know that's not true, but the policy that we want to recommend should be consonant with or in congruence with trying to avoid tragic incidents in the future.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Thank you, Richard, for that point. That's a very good point. And maybe with that, as we, Karen, as you give us back the document that you provide, we may, as a committee, want to say that we prioritize a value load a particular policies amongst one another. If we say that we believe that this is, first and foremost, and then rate and rank others as we go through them. It's something that we could think about when we get the document back from Karen. So, Janice, at this time, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? I think we're quite on our time at 12 o'clock. If there's anything else that you feel we should cover.
Well, I do think that we should still be looking for recommendations. We should still be going through our literature and seeing what recommendations that we can make. Like Wade said very early on in this conversation, that we don't want to miss anything. We're not going to get another chance to do this. And this is an opportunity that we can't miss on. So I do think that this committee should continue to look at the literature that we have and the literature that's going to be sent to us, and continue to see what recommendations that we can make. We can't miss anything. So we got to continue to do the work.
While you were talking, I just Googled Sanctity of Life, U.S. Conference of Mayors, and it popped right up. I just sent everybody the link on the chat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, just one other thing. Janice, you sent us an article the other day, which actually addresses a lot of those issues too, about using force as an absolute last resort. And
yeah, I thought that was a great article. And that's why I said, I think we have more recommendations to make, because they had some things in there that we didn't make. And I don't want to not make them. I want us to look at them.
Yep.
Good. Very good. Anything else from anyone else? So I think that we've hit our 12 o'clock hour. If we don't have anything else to add at this time, I'd like to say that there was a lot of great things, a lot of value that we got from the meeting today, and I appreciate the fact that Wade took the time to join us. Hopefully, we can encourage you in the future to hang in there with us. And thank you, Captain Spencer and Chief Castelli. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything else that any other committee member would like to add?
I'd just like to thank the chief and the captain and Wade. Thank you guys so much for taking the time on this Sunday morning and to speak with us and share with us. So thank you. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank Karen for taking on that task.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait and see what I come up with.
So we all will be at the meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Just know it's a beautiful day out. I was already out grocery shopping. It's beautiful. We should all get out and enjoy the day.
Out. Yep.
Wow.
We had Santa Claus here in White Plains doing his tours of the neighborhood.
Yeah, he drove by my house a few minutes ago.
Yep.
Nice. All right, everyone. Have
All
a
right,
good
everyone,
one.
thank you.
Yep.
We'll
All
see you
right,
tomorrow.
guys.
Thank you for
Good
your
night.
time.
Bye,
All right,
everybody.
take care, everyone. Have a
Bye.
good day. Take care.
Bye.